In our modern world, narcissism is a term that has become increasingly common, often thrown around to describe people who appear overly self-absorbed or egotistical. While it's easy to label someone as a narcissist when they behave arrogantly or act entitled, understanding the deeper psychological traits of a narcissist, especially in relation to criticism, is crucial for identifying the underlying causes of their behavior. Narcissists, by definition, are individuals with an inflated sense of their own importance, a constant need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. At the core of narcissistic behavior is an intense fragility that is hidden behind the facade of confidence and self-sufficiency. This fragility manifests most notably when they're faced with criticism. Criticism for a narcissist is not just a simple critique, it's a personal attack. This inability to handle criticism is often what sets narcissists apart from others and makes them difficult to interact with in both personal and professional settings. But why is it that narcissists react so defensively when faced with negative feedback? And what does this reveal about their true nature? In this video, we'll explore the reasons why narcissists can't handle criticism and what this reveals about their psychological makeup. Through understanding the roots of their defensiveness, we can better navigate interactions with narcissistic individuals and ultimately protect ourselves from the negative effects of their behavior. The narcissist's fragile ego. At the heart of narcissism lies an incredibly fragile ego. Despite the outward display of arrogance and self-confidence, a narcissist's sense of self-worth is anything but stable. They rely heavily on external validation to feel good about themselves, which means that any criticism, no matter how constructive or minor, is perceived as a direct threat to their self-image. Narcissists build their identity on the admiration and attention they receive from others. When faced with criticism, this carefully constructed image of superiority is shattered, and the result is a deeply emotional reaction, often much stronger than the situation warrants. They may lash out, become defensive, or even attempt to discredit the person who has dared to criticize them. This fragile ego is a defense mechanism that protects the narcissist from facing their own insecurities. By projecting an image of infallibility, they shield themselves from the vulnerability that would arise if they were to admit their flaws. Unfortunately, this defense mechanism also makes them highly sensitive to any form of feedback that could expose their perceived weaknesses. The inability to accept criticism is a direct result of their desperate need to maintain their inflated self-image. It's not that they cannot hear feedback, but rather that they cannot tolerate anything that threatens their perceived perfection. Narcissism and the need for perfection. A key characteristic of narcissistic individuals is their obsession with perfection. Narcissists often believe they are superior to others, not only in intellect and appearance, but in every aspect of their lives. This belief is part of what drives their behavior and their extreme need for admiration and validation. Any hint of imperfection, whether in their appearance, work, or behavior, is considered intolerable. Criticism challenges the idea of perfection that narcissists desperately cling to. For them, receiving negative feedback is not just a learning opportunity. It is a direct blow to their self-image. A narcissist will often see constructive criticism as a personal failure or a sign that they are not as flawless as they wish to be. This inability to accept imperfections further entrenches their defensiveness and desire to avoid situations where their flaws might be exposed. When their imperfections are pointed out, the narcissist may react in one of several ways: dismissing the criticism outright, blaming others for the situation, or becoming enraged and retaliating against the person who criticized them. The fear of being seen as imperfect is so powerful that the narcissist will often go to great lengths to protect their ego, including denying their flaws entirely. This perfectionism is not simply about external achievements. It extends to their internal self-concept. Narcissists believe they must be admired and respected at all costs, and any form of criticism threatens this idealized version of themselves. Narcissistic rage, the violent response to criticism. One of the most striking features of a narcissist's reaction to criticism is the phenomenon of narcissistic rage. When a narcissist feels threatened or challenged by criticism, it can trigger an emotional outburst that is often disproportionate to the situation. This is referred to as narcissistic rage, and it can manifest as verbal attacks, physical aggression, or even passive-aggressive behavior. Narcissistic rage is a result of the narcissist's overwhelming need to maintain control over how others perceive them. Criticism undermines this control and forces the narcissist to confront their worst fear, that they are not as perfect and invulnerable as they present themselves to be. In an attempt to regain control and restore their image, they may lash out at the person who has criticized them or anyone who poses a threat to their self-constructed reality. This rage is often unpredictable and can range from a subtle coldness to a full-blown emotional explosion. The key to understanding narcissistic rage is recognizing that it's not a simple temper tantrum. It's a defense mechanism that is triggered by feelings of inadequacy and humiliation. The narcissist may not even be fully conscious of the root cause of their rage, but their response is often rooted in their fragile self-esteem. Lack of empathy. Why narcissists can't understand criticism. Another key aspect of narcissistic behavior that plays a role in their inability to handle criticism is their lack of empathy. Narcissists often struggle to understand the emotions and perspectives of others. Their worldview is centered around themselves, and they have little regard for how their actions may affect the people around them. When a narcissist is criticized, they are more likely to interpret it through the lens of their own insecurities rather than consider the intent or feelings of the person delivering the feedback. They may not see the criticism as an opportunity for self-improvement, but as a personal affront. This lack of empathy leads to a complete breakdown in communication between the narcissist and others, as the narcissist is unable to understand why anyone would point out their flaws. For a narcissist, criticism is not seen as constructive. It's seen as an attack on their worth as a person. Because they are incapable of empathizing with others, they interpret all forms of criticism as an indictment of their entire identity. This is why they may react with anger, defensiveness, or denial, rather than taking a step back and reflecting on the feedback they've received. The fear of exposure. Why criticism feels like a threat. At the core of a narcissist's inability to handle criticism is the fear of exposure. Narcissists go to great lengths to project an image of perfection, and any form of criticism threatens to reveal the flaws they work so hard to hide. This fear of exposure is often tied to feelings of shame and inadequacy, emotions that narcissists will do anything to avoid experiencing. The narcissist's grandiose sense of self is often a defense mechanism to cover up deep-seated feelings of insecurity and vulnerability. When faced with criticism, these feelings are triggered, and the narcissist may experience overwhelming shame. In order to protect themselves from these uncomfortable emotions, the narcissist will do whatever they can to deflect or deny the criticism. This may include turning the tables and blaming others for the situation, using manipulation to control the narrative, or simply refusing to acknowledge the criticism altogether. The fear of exposure is what makes narcissists so sensitive to criticism. They are terrified of being seen as anything less than perfect, and any suggestion that they are flawed is a direct threat to their self-image. This is why criticism is often met with such hostility and defensiveness. The narcissist would rather react with anger than allow themselves to confront the possibility that they are not as flawless as they want others to believe. Narcissism in relationships. How criticism affects personal connections. The inability to handle criticism is particularly damaging in personal relationships where open communication and mutual respect are essential for healthy dynamics. In romantic relationships, friendships, and family interactions, narcissists may refuse to accept any form of criticism, making it incredibly difficult for others to express their feelings or concerns. This creates a toxic environment where the narcissist's needs are prioritized and the needs of others are ignored or dismissed. When a partner, friend, or family member tries to address an issue with a narcissist, they are often met with hostility or defensiveness. The narcissist may accuse them of being overly sensitive, insecure, or ungrateful. Any attempt to challenge the narcissist's behavior is seen as a direct attack, and instead of engaging in constructive dialogue, the narcissist may become more entrenched in their beliefs. This dynamic often leads to frustration, resentment, and emotional exhaustion for those in relationships with narcissists. It's difficult to communicate effectively when one party is unwilling to accept any form of feedback or criticism. Over time, this lack of emotional understanding can lead to the breakdown of relationships and the alienation of the people who once cared for the narcissist. How to deal with a narcissist who can't handle criticism. Dealing with a narcissist who cannot handle criticism can be incredibly challenging. However, understanding the psychological underpinnings of their behavior can help us navigate interactions more effectively. Here are a few strategies for managing relationships with narcissistic individuals. Set boundaries. Establish clear boundaries with a narcissist and be prepared to enforce them. Narcissists often try to manipulate others to get their way, so it's important to stand firm and not allow them to cross boundaries without consequences. Avoid direct confrontation. Because narcissists are so sensitive to criticism, direct confrontation may only escalate the situation. Instead of attacking or criticizing them head-on, try to frame feedback in a way that is less threatening. Focus on how the situation affects you rather than pointing out their flaws. Don't take it personally. When a narcissist reacts defensively or angrily to criticism, try not to take it personally. Their behavior is a reflection of their fragile ego, not a reflection of you. Understand that their reactions are driven by insecurity and fear, not malice. Seek support. If you're in a relationship with a narcissist, seek support from others who understand the dynamics of narcissistic behavior. Whether it's a therapist, a close friend, or a support group, having a network of people who can help you process your experiences is crucial for maintaining your emotional well-being. Understanding narcissism and criticism. The truth about narcissists and their inability to handle criticism is rooted in a deep psychological need to protect their fragile egos. Criticism is viewed as a direct threat to their self-image, which leads to defensive, often hostile reactions. By understanding the underlying causes of this defensiveness, we can approach narcissistic individuals with more empathy and knowledge and protect ourselves from the toxic effects of their behavior. While it may never be easy to interact with someone who cannot handle criticism, recognizing the fear, insecurity, and perfectionism at play can help us navigate these difficult relationships with greater understanding and care.